Hey guys, this is Illusion Podfics. We're back with Spider-Man Reborn by Reborn. This is Chapter 8. What's that? Peter climbed onto the desk in the library, eyes focused on the screen of Tim's laptop. A map was open as red pins spread across it from various points. The file by Tim's hand told Peter that this was definitely vigilante work. I'm trying to figure out where this guy's gonna hit next, Tim grumbled, absent-mindedly pulling Peter from the desk to his lap. Peter whined when he felt Tim's chin rest on his head. Shh, I need to concentrate. The pins on the map had no obvious pattern. Peter traced them with his eyes, trying to find something. Was this a serial robber? A serial killer? Spider-Man usually just showed up for a fight. There was rarely any need for all of this. Without his spider's powers, though, he should learn while he can. What did he do? A string of robberies. The unsub goes by the alias Mole, and breaks in from underneath. Bruce doesn't think he's a meta, but I'm not too sure. Tim sighed, clicking on something that enlarged the map. Sewer lines came on screen, lit in a pale green color. What's he taking? If Peter took the name Mole, he'd go after diamonds. Themes are important if you take one on, after all. Jewelry and cash. Mole's broken into a few banks and stores, but they're all spread out. We can't track him in. Wait, is this training? You don't have to learn this stuff, Pete. Tim broke off, blinking down at him, as if he just realized who he was talking to. Peter would prefer learning to fight rather than this. If this could help him someday, he should know it. It's not fighting, he huffed as Tim dropped him back to the ground. Peter pulled on his sleeve. Tim, I want to learn. He went ignored as Tim lost himself to the screen. Peter prodded him for a minute before sneaking around the back of his chair. The file was left unattended by the laptop, and Tim was too absorbed to notice. Inching closer, Peter stood on his toes to reach the table. His fingers caught the file while he slowly pulled towards himself. Tim didn't make a sound other than his mumbling complaints directed at the thief. Perfect. Once, with the file in hand, Peter bolted to the back of the library. He sat down in the open space between two shelves before opening the file. There were a few pages of surveillance cameras of Mole, a list of everything missing, and clues they picked up with dates and times. Mole had to be quick to get everything in the time frame his dad and him have. The police always showed up within 5 to 10 minutes after the alarm was triggered. All of them were triggered. If Mole was as elusive as Tim complained he is, how was he triggering them consistently? After the first few times, one would think the robber would disable them. What have you got there, chum? Nothing, Peter yelped as his dad crouched in front of him. The folder was laid open on the floor for his dad to clearly see. This isn't for you to play with, Peter. His dad packed the papers away as Peter tried in vain to catch a last glimpse of them. Your mom's looking for you. Peter sighed as his dad closed the folder. Next time. He'll get Tim to teach him next time. Tim went home by the end of the week, and Peter didn't like it. Thankfully, he was Wayne, and Mr. and Mrs. Drake loved him already. Beaming, Peter bounced towards his new friend. Not brother. He can't lose another brother. Peter? Mr. Wayne? Tim scooped him up as he looked between the pair. Why are you here? Peter wanted to play with you today, and since I have business with your father, I thought this would work out. You don't mind, do you? His dad smiled a not-so-fake smile towards Tim. He sighed before Peter felt his head nodding above him. He didn't move weirdly, and Peter couldn't feel anything wrong with Tim from their hug. They continued into the house after Miss Drake suggested they play in the garden. His dad disappeared into a sitting room with Tim's parents behind them. This was all you, wasn't it? Tim accused as he put Peter down outside. Peter grinned back at him. Obviously, this was Peter's plan. It helped that this was something his dad didn't find too dangerous for him. Now with his dad occupied and Alfred not around to distract him, Peter could focus on more important things. Look at me, Peter ordered once Tim sat on a lounge chair. He had been watching Rocky and he wanted to try the moves with Tim, or in this case, in front of Tim. Moving a little away from the chairs, Peter got into a position. He remembered some lessons vaguely from before. He recalls Daredevil showing him the stance. Tim sat up straighter in his seat as Peter bounced on his heels. Boxing shouldn't be too hard, not after all those lessons from before. He threw a few punches in front of him, curling his thumb just under his knuckle. Peter tried for a high kick before tumbling backwards as he lost his balance. This was a lot easier as a teenager than it is now. Peter, Tim sighed, sliding off the chair. Why do you want to learn so badly? 'Cause I need to find Jason. I need to bring him home. Peter shot up to his feet, preparing for the incoming argument. Everyone said he was too young, that he was too little. Peter knew he was, sure. He's still a few months shy of being 3, and no one would train a 2-year-old to fight. Hell, Peter wouldn't before either, except now he's the 2-year-old in question, and it's his family that's in danger. He has reasons for this. He needs to learn. Okay. Tim pulled Peter in for a hug, his fingers brushing through his hair. Okay, I get it, Peter. I can't teach you to fight, even if it's for a good reason. Not at your age. I'm sorry. I don't want him to be gone either. Then teach me, Peter whined, pulling away from Tim's hug. Tim doesn't think Jason's coming home either. I can't teach you to fight, but I'll teach you another way to look for him, okay? This way, if you find him, you can tell Bruce or me about it, Tim offered softly. Peter's hands were too small for regular typing, so he was left with pressing keys one letter at a time. Tim had just started teaching Peter how to hack into surveillance cameras, and so far, the lesson is spent mostly typing. To just enter the network of a localized modem takes nearly an hour, and by then, Tim intervenes. No! Peter swatted at Tim's hands once again as they tried to take over his work. Peter wishes he had Friday here to hack for him instead. Or Karen. Karen would have done this ages ago, and talked Peter through it. Breaking into the network to look at the CCTV cameras within Gotham was supposed to be easy. Tim talked about it at length earlier, mentioning how the rogues and gangsters have it easier, since even they could get into it if they really tried. Apparently, the Joker and Riddler have done so. Peter was sure there was even more if it was really so easy. Somehow, Peter is the only one struggling. He blames his hands for it. Peter, just watch me again. You'll hack into it later, okay? Tim offered, his hands moving back into the keyboard despite Peter's protests. Slumping against Tim, Peter watched him type in the lines to code. He watched as the lines grew, breaking into Gotham's network. Someday, he'll do it himself. Someday. Peter was really starting to hate having to wait. Everything was so impossible, and Peter couldn't just let himself forget because the curse is haunting him. It's haunting him and his family, and he can't just forget no matter how much he wants to. He'll watch for now. Learn all that he can, and then he'll make Karen. So that's what he did. He watched him hack into the CCTV, and then he learned to switch between cameras. They watched a few streets as people walked across the sidewalk, or cars sped past. Peter watched as Tim showed him how to apply facial recognition to the system, tracking random faces as profiles popped into the screen. All of this felt archaic. Friday and Karen handled it before. Peter didn't even use these methods when he searched for someone. Usually, word of mouth and his senses went a long way for Peter. Now, though, this was something useful, something he could do. Please just stay close to me, Pete. I have the backpack leash if you try to run off, Dick sighed as he pulled Peter's arm back to his side. The zoo was packed today, and after they reopened the lion exhibit, everyone ran here for it. Tim joined them with Barbara in her wheelchair. She held up the offending backpack that Peter had sworn never to wear. The bright yellow backpack had the face of a cartoon lion, and a leash for the parent or sibling to hold. No thank you. Peter shook his head, glowering at said backpack. Dick led him down the path once they passed the ticket booth. As the others followed behind them, Peter had to call the Drakes by himself to get Tim to join them, despite his mom claiming he was busy. Clearly he wasn't, since Miss Drake sent him over immediately. Peter wanted to see the lions and tigers, but Dick led them down the left path, which had elephants. He held on to Dick's hand only because he refused the backpack, and maybe he could slip out of the backpack. Maybe. The elephants were out today, 2 of them eating some grass while a third drank water. Dick released Peter's hand to take pictures with his phone. Peter stood on his toes, clinging to the rail to peer over it. Elephants were cool too. Zitka was named after an elephant Dick knew. Could Dick hang out with these elephants too? A shutter click caught Peter's attention as he turned to find the offending guest with the camera. Tim crouched by Barb's wheelchair, his face hidden behind said camera. "What you doing?" "Taking pictures. Do you want to see?" Tim barely finished his sentence before Peter reached him. He watched as Tim clicked back to show the capture of Peter trying to look over the rail as Dick stood beside him. The angle just barely caught the smile on Peter's face as Dick's mouth was opened in the middle of a sentence. A faint uptick of his lips conveyed the happiness he also felt in the moment. He could even spot the elephants through the railing. "Wow," Peter breathed. It looked like a stock photo for picture frames, something that showed adventure and familial bonding. The scene was gentle with the sunlight that escaped past the smog today. "Can I try?" Tim held the camera behind Peter as he instructed him how to use it. Peter remembers vaguely that this was something he's done before. The memory felt far away, almost nostalgic in a way. Peter peered through the eyepiece, watching as Barbara wheeled up beside Dick. He waited a moment as Tim instructed just as Dick scooped up Babs in a bridal carry. She threw her head back in laughter, her smile bright as her eyes closed in the moment. Click. "Look!" Peter turned to face Tim, shoving the camera back into his hands. The scene was adorable as he heard her laugh from behind him now. Dick whispered something that brought another round of laughter. "Huh, you've got a knack for this," Tim hummed, ruffling Peter's hair before standing up. "Can we see the cats now?" Peter asked. He was ready to move on now, but Dick and Barbara were still watching the elephants. Tim grinned down at him, offering a hand silently. Peter took it, grinning right back at him as they snuck away from the 2. The paths were crowded, but the signs were tall enough to still be visible. Tim took the lead as the tallest between the 2, following the signs for the big cat exhibit. "They'll find us later," Tim laughed as Peter spotted a hot dog cart. "Hungry?" "Yes, please." "It's your birthday, Pete," Tim shrugged, leading him towards the vendor. Peter skipped alongside him excitedly. It was his birthday. Peter was finally 3. He had to be old enough to train now, right? A few weeks after Peter's birthday, he started a new habit that his parents worried about. Every day, his dad left for work. Peter waited till the usual time he returned to wait by the door. When Tim calls ahead about visiting them, Peter races to be there. Anytime his mom left for a trip, or to meet with friends, he would be by the window waiting. Alfred told him that they were safe. His dad told him that everyone was coming home. Peter knew he was excluding Jason, but he pretended otherwise. His mom would kiss his head and thank him for guarding the house. He knew this was childish, but Peter ignored the fact. Now, this habit was useful as it was stressful. Peter had managed to wheedle time out of Tim's day to hang out, but he still always had to go home before too long. Tim had promised to be at Wayne Manor for 3 months while his parents were gone, and it was now past the time he was promised to be there. He was supposed to come home for months this time, and Peter was waiting by the door for days. Tim swore he'd be here by Sunday, and now it's Wednesday. Where is he? The seat across from him was still empty by lunch. Peter had checked the library and the boarding room, and he wasn't there. He should have seen Tim if he was here. He's been waiting by the door more often than not. Peter fought to push the panic down that Tim hasn't come home by now, when he should have. Tim could protect himself, so why was he missing? Where was he? "He'll be back soon. I'll bring him home, Peter," his dad promised, stroking his hair. Peter couldn't smile back. His dad looked sad too. His usual smile didn't reach his dad's eyes, belying his conviction in those words. His dad had left in a rush after breakfast, leaving Peter with his mom. Seeing her green eyes fixed to the doorway his dad left from, she looked sad too. Tim wasn't dead. He couldn't be. Peter hid in the library, pulling at Tim's papers and supplies from his backpack. Revenge, in a way, for leaving. Were his parents still at home? Did he go with them? Peter couldn't figure it out. Something had to be wrong. No, he was just late. Tim liked the manor. He was always here. Peter had tried to chase him out, and now that he wants him here, he leaves. He likes Tim. He likes him, and now he's in danger. His dad said he'll be back. No. He said that he will bring him back. Was he kidnapped? Taken? By who? What for? What was Batman doing for him? What can Peter do? Peter left the library with a new goal in mind. He knew someone who had all the answers, after all. Alfred! Peter rushed into the laundry room where said man was folding laundry. Peter grinned. Perfect. Where's Tim? I'm afraid I don't know, Master Peter, Alfred answered while pulling a blanket from the dryer. Peter pouted. He definitely knew. Yes, you do. Master Peter, would you care to assist me? I'm afraid I'll need some help with this. Alfred raised the blanket in the air a little, showing the size of it to Peter. Foiled. Peter climbed into the chair nearby, whilst making grabby hands for the blanket. He'll help, and then he'll get his answers. They folded the blanket together before Alfred held out a second one. Peter spent the rest of the afternoon helping him fold laundry, before his mom took him to take a nap. Fine. There's someone else who knows nearly everything. Please, Peter begged, using both hands to hold the phone to his ear. His mom had left him with it so he could talk to Babs, but she was not as forthcoming as he hoped. I'm sorry, Peter, but I don't know. If I could tell you, I would. She sighed into the phone. He's gone. Tim can't leave. Peter whined. His newest brother can't just leave. Not after everything. Jason already left, and Peter will not lose another family member. Jason left. Babs. He knew his voice wobbled as he spoke, tears collecting around his eyes. He just couldn't care if he sounded like the child he was. He couldn't lose Peter too. His family has to be safe. They just have to. I know, honey. I'm looking for him. I promise. We'll bring him home, Babs promised. Peter hoped she would keep it. There was nothing Peter could do. He didn't know what happened, and he didn't know what he could do. Peter was only just learning gymnastics, but that won't help him with this. Not yet. He could only wait and hope his dad can bring Tim back. Until then, he could hope. Tim will be back. Jason will come home. Everything will be fine because Peter will break the curse. He won't let them die. No one else can die. Not again. Peter curled up further inside the cabinet, listening in on his dad's conversation with Alfred. He knew there's more to the story about Tim, and he knows no one will tell him. His dad usually confided in Alfred late at night after a patrol where his search still brought up no new information. The fact that his dad hadn't given up on Tim meant more than he probably wanted to tell Peter. He had given up on Jason from the beginning, despite Peter's attempts to send him searching. His dad knows. He must have seen Tim alive to warrant this consistent search. So Peter chose to listen, if only to get all the facts before he tries to help in some way. How can I break past it? Tim, he isn't himself, and it's all the Joker's doing. His dad sighed, sounding older than Peter ever heard him. Time, Master Bruce. Just bring him home, and time will handle it. I'm sure Master Peter would do wonders for his recovery as well. Peter considered those words from the cramped cabinet, carefully sliding a pot aside as his foot cramped. Tim was with the Joker. He hadn't learned much about the Joker, other than what he's gathered from the usual ambiance in the room when the name came up. One of his dad's rogues that causes more death and harm than all the others. A rogue who now has Tim and did something to him. What happened to Tim? What is the Joker doing? Robin is Batman's sidekick. Maybe he hopes to gain leverage. If he had Batman doing anything to get his Robin back, he could force the vigilante to do a lot of harm in the name of protecting his own. Something that would be against the code Batman is supposed to follow. Peter considered the options from there. Alfred thinks Peter could help him recover, and he definitely would. He could play nurse for Tim until he's back on his feet as long as Tim comes home. I won't give up on him. His dad's voice was tight as he spoke, words constricting in his throat as he choked them out. I can't see Peter go through that again. Tim was only trying to do right. He was. Master Tim upholds the mantle of Robin well. Go and rest, Master Bruce. You will bring him home soon. Alfred consoled, his voice as soft as it was when he comforted Peter. He wished he could climb out and hug them both, reassure them that Tim was coming home. Batman will bring him back. Peter was sure of it. And if not, Spider-Man can try. Hey, Peter. Tim knocked on his door. Peter fell out of bed, scrambling to tackle him in a hug. It had been an entire month, and Peter knew it. He knew it like he knows that Jason is alive and Tim's here. He's home. Tim! Peter shrieked, wrapping his arms around Tim's legs and trapping the boy in place. You're back! Peter pulled back to study his face. Tim was pale, paler than before. There was shakiness in his hands as Peter held onto them. Peter nodded. Decision made. Come on. It wasn't hard for Peter to drag his newest brother to his bed. Tim followed quietly, climbing on bed when Peter demanded it of him. He had the eyes, glassy and distant. Mr. Barn had those eyes after he was freed from Hydra's control. Peter had those eyes when he finally split from Venom. They were the eyes of someone changed, of someone torn apart and remade into something worse. Losing yourself in that way clears the spark life carries. Those eyes are haunted. They're pained. They feel alone. You're home, Tim, Peter whispered, clinging tightly to him. This will never happen again. Peter will keep him safe. Tim won't have to go through that ever, ever again. He promised to himself that night that he will be a vigilante as soon as possible. He will be with them so they won't be hurt. Spider-Man can take any hit. Spider-Man always gets back up. Peter won't stop until his family is safe. He won't lose them again. He can't. Tim has been quiet since he came back. He insists that he's fine, and Peter understands. He understands because Tim is a vigilante, and so was he. A hero has to be fine. They can't afford not to be, because the moment they are out, and they aren't fine, then people die. Because the fraction of a second where you hesitate, you already lost. Peter hates to see his brother like this, to see him be fine, but not be okay. So he does the only thing he can at this age. Peter drags him from room to room to play or read, to watch a movie, or to just be. His brother won't confide in Peter, but that doesn't mean Peter can't do anything at all. He can't go and beat up the person that did this. He can't bring Tim any closer, so he makes sure that Tim isn't alone. The first time Peter saw Tim leave again was when he stayed. They sat in the boring room with a show playing on the TV. Tim's arm draped over his shoulder as they watched some sitcom of a two-large family and their misadventures. A laugh track roared as the father came home to chaos, and Tim froze. Peter felt the arm over his shoulder stiffen like stone. Tim's face stared past the screen as his face paled. He didn't shake. He didn't cry. He just stared. He felt sick. Peter pulled at Tim's sleeve, trying to garner some reaction. When Tim didn't move, didn't turn, Peter tried something else. He climbed onto Tim's lap, clutching the remote like a weapon as he changed the channel. A documentary on Caribou began to play as he took guard over his brother. Tim might be sitting here, but his mind is gone. Gone to the nightmare of whatever experience he had. Gone to be haunted once again by the past. Peter couldn't save him before, but he could protect him here and now. He will keep Wayne Manor safe and everyone inside. There were few times where Peter's mind left before, when too much happened and so much hurt, when he was too late and when he was just in time. Vigilantes could see so much and suffer even more to protect those that couldn't. Tim won't hear him, but he'll know. "You're safe," Peter whispered, setting sentry over his brother. "He'll be safe now. Peter won't let anyone hurt him again." Alright guys, and that was chapter 8 of Spider-Man Reborn. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next chapter.